In late 2019, a virus was discovered in Wuhan City in China. Though the virus was not too lethal, it was highly contagious, and as a result, deaths began to increase dramatically. Because of this, many countries began to close their borders to prevent the spread of the disease, although the US stayed open for a while longer than most countries, though most places in the country eventually had to close down in mid-March. With many places closed, people were forced to adapt to these drastic differences from their normal lives. Here, I've compiled some anecdotes of how a few people overcame these struggles caused by the pandemic. After many challenging years in college, my sister graduated in 2020, though with the quarantine it had to be online. Despite the lockdown, she was able to secure a job as a teacher in Los Angeles, but teaching online proved to be a bigger obstacle than she thought.
I would say the main thing about graduating during the pandemic is that it felt absolutely surreal and exhausting to not only have to have the middle of my year cut off abruptly in the middle of March. It just felt very abrupt and hollow, to say the least. As for becoming a teacher, it's definitely a worthwhile experience, but while online and oftentimes when you're the only square where your face is visible and you are begging all of your other students to show their faces, it is still extremely nerve-wracking. I realize more importantly than anything, it is so crucial to be empathetic to what my students are going through. These are 12, 13-year-olds that have had their whole lives ripped away from them in one fell swoop, and we have to be empathetic of everything that has happened to them. Maybe they're tired, maybe they're exhausted from classes that aren't mine. They have to be expected to be there and present. 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, sitting in a chair for 6 hours straight, not being able to talk or hang out with any of their friends in between, or even maybe step outside for the time being. And I realize that as my job, it is my responsibility to teach them, but it is also not my job to expose things that they may not want to reveal to me. The other struggles that I would say that I deal with, definitely technology is one thing that I didn't realize I would ever become so exclusively dependent on, but I really have. And I will say I am extremely privileged. I have so much privilege in this situation that other people do not have access to. I have a place of my own. I have a job of my own. I pay all of my bills and utilities on time in a time when many people are struggling to do so. And even though I am privileged, even though I do have a lot of privileges, there definitely are struggles that I have to think about constantly during this time as well.
As teaching became a major challenge as a result of the lockdown, it's natural that it would be just as hard on the students. Reagan Pendarvis was a student at Sarah High School when the quarantine began. Because of this, he had to start doing school virtually, though with his limited technical skills, there were some added potholes in his road to success.
Adapting to the lockdown was extremely difficult for me because I had a lot of things that kind of ended so abruptly throughout my 2020 school year. And probably the biggest issue was track and field ending, because I previously didn't run cross country that year, and having track and field just ended just like that kind of stopped me from having an entire season for sports. And it kind of affected me this year because I haven't been running, so it's kind of slowed me down. But other than that, my other issues, although in the present they were pretty difficult to overcome, they were overall a step in the right direction. The first major problem that I had was figuring out how to do everything digitally, because I'm extremely technologically ignorant, so adapting and starting to use technology, doing everything online was very difficult for me. But overall, it was a good thing because I knew someday I would need to be able to know how to do that and use those skills to do things on a computer. So it's been a positive thing for me overall. My final issue during the quarantine had to do with my AP class. So last year, I was, for the first time, going to take an AP class, and I had never taken an AP test before. So when the time came at the end of the year, I was forced to learn how to study and prepare for my AP exam all on my own. And this is extremely challenging because I had never gone through this process before, and I was sort of left out to do everything on my own. I just read through the textbook and studied on my own. Luckily, it worked out for me. I did very well on my AP World History exam. This was overall a positive experience for me because I know I have to learn this for a college later on.
Even with the added hardships from the virus, these people have persevered to overcome their struggles. Despite this, there are many people who aren't doing as well. To help out, you can look for volunteer opportunities, with minimal contact of course, to help those in need. Some examples of these are donating food to people who can't go shopping, or sending uplifting notes to people who are struggling mentally. In conclusion, though many people found ways to overcome the problems brought up by the virus, there are still some who can't, though there are many ways to help them.